a very, very good evening, and I'm sending you out a warm welcome to the entire South Africa because I think it is freezing everywhere. It doesn't matter where you go. It's really, really cold. And it's just 10 days to go before you make your crosses next to the party you like. We are live from Johannesburg, and we're broadcasting simultaneously on SABC 2 and DSTV 404. I hope the weather is not like this on voting day.
I hope so too, eh? I hope so too.
Freezing today,
yeah,
it really is.
Absolutely insane.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Thank you so much.
Just the two of us today.
I know.
Yeah, Tabisa's away for today, and we have a packed program today, and we'll focus on the city of Joburg and Ekurhuleni on the East Rand.
Yeah, this is very, very interesting. These metros are going to be dissected on the program, and Johannesburg is one of the 3 highly contested metros in these upcoming elections. I think we've managed to get through most of those highly contested ones, the Nelson Mandela Bay, Tshwane and Johannesburg. So before we look at those 2 municipalities on the Witwatersrand, let's have a glimpse of the situation in the Western Cape municipality, and the one we're talking about is Matsikama.
Vredendal, a little town in the northernmost part of the Western Cape. Being the economic hub of this region, it's also the seat of the Matsikama municipality. Named after an old farm in the area, Vredendal means Valley of Peace. But for Elise Klaaser, who was born and bred here, peace is something she has not been familiar with for a long time. A former farm labourer, now without work, she, her family and their neighbours fight for survival here in these old farmhouses. They still live on the farm they grew up in and worked on, but here they are provided with no services.
As ek water op tap, mevrou, en ek kyk in die emmer, daar's goedjies wat swem. Wat is dit? Ek weet nie wat gogga is of wat dit is. Maar kook ek nou kos aan my. Wat gaan ek my kind hospitaal toe stuur met hy water sam?
Life is not easier. There is no sanitation, no electricity. But despite being let down by the system year after year, Klaaser says she still lives in hope that by voting, a change will come.
Ek voel om te stem. Want ons voel die regte. Moet ons kry, mevrou. Ons wil aan mekaar so lewe nie, mevrou. Hulle beloof, hulle maak beloftes. Maar hulle kom nooit so ver met beloftes na te kom. Ons bly kyk hoe lank sit ons aan mekaar net hier. Ons kan loop, maar 'n tree gaan ons nooit vorentoe nie.
Klaaser is not the only one seeking a better life.
Mostly in the rural areas, there are still dusty roads. Some people with no electricity, no water supplies, any of those basic sanitary needs that we need in the communities.
Some areas where there are informal settlements, there is no running water, no toilets, no electricity.
Ik ga stemmen en ik wil stem voor een beter leven voor ons hier in Klaver. Hulle moet voor ons alles de tarieven wat ons willen hebben, moeten voor ons geven en voor werk. Ons het allemaal werkloos.
Onze straat ligt nu al hoe lang stukken, die brandt niet. Ons hebben het al verschillende keren aangemeld.
Meer werkskepping, behuising, geleenthede vir jong mense, soos learnerships of soos beurse vir college toe gaan.
While many residents do say they're fairly satisfied with the services they're provided with, they say there is always room for improvement. Matsikama is made up of, among others, Vredendal, Van Reinsdorp, Klaver, Doringbaai and Lutzville. And the feeling is fairly similar across all these towns, with an unemployment rate of 14% and a youth unemployment rate of around 19%. Job creation is one of the main concerns here. That and having decent housing. While decent housing is something the municipality can be held responsible for, job creation is not actually one of its primary roles. Even though here in Matsikama, the municipality does try to enter into partnerships with the private sector to fill this gap. Political parties contesting the election year all say they will pay close attention to the services they are responsible for if they're elected into power.
Ek dink die ANC het baie gedoen vir ons mense van Matsikama. Kom ons begin by Ebenezer. Maak dit simpel vir Ebenezer. Ebenezer is deel van die landreformproses van National. As jy kyk, Ebenezer was al jare 'n stofpad geweest. Ek was geles gister in Ebenezer. Daai plaveisel is deel van die CRDP-proses. Dit is 'n parkie. As jy kyk na jou vriend aan Noord, dat is baie gedoen in vriend aan Noord, jou ophuise.
Ons as DEA beplan en beloof aan ons mense om bevoegde amptenare aan te stel en te kry en bevoegde bestuursvernuf daar te stel, sodat selfs die finansies en die ekonomie van die munisipaliteit korrek bestuur kan word ten einde ons inwoners van ons gemeenskap en ons munisipaliteit ten volle te kan dien.
Maar wat die EFF eintlik vir u wil sê is dat hulle daar vir verandering, hulle wil kyk na vernuwing, hulle wil kyk om 'n verskil te kom maak binne in die opset van die bestaan van die Matsikama. En verder wil die EFF sê dat hulle wil eerlik wees, hulle wil korrupsie omverwerp, hulle wil net kyk daar vir geregtigheid en dat die mense altyd alle tye eerste gestel gaan word.
Die NGP maak geen beloftes nie. Ons gaan nie vir mense weer sê ons gaan dit doen of dat doen nie. Daar is al te veel beloftes vir die mense gemaak. So wat die NGP gaan doen is ons om dit wat veronderstel was om aan die mense gegee te word, ons gaan reg doen daaraan. Mense moet geteerde strate kry. Dit is nie 'n belofte wat ek kan maak nie. Daar's 'n behuisingskrisis. Huise moet gebou word. As daar waterkrisisse is, moet die mense water kry.
Op plaaslike vlak, meneer, is behuising een van ons mees, en ek glo in ander munisipaliteite ook, een van die mees sensitiewe kwessies. Dit is 'n prioriteit, maar ons ervaar ook dat die behoefte raak al groter vir mense wat nie kwalifiseer vir hulphuise nie. Dieselfde met ander, die uitgee van tenders, die procurement stelsel van die munisipaliteit. Daai is van die kwessies wat ons wil aanspreek en regtig sorg dat ons mense waarlik bemagtig word.
Listening to the politicians outline their manifestos and plans to improve lives here is enough to make any would-be voter sing, even though Klaasse says she has been let down so many times by promises and visits made only during election time.
Asseblief, my pa kom al mooi. Asseblief, my pa kom al mooi.
Will she eventually see these promises translated into services? Services that she and so many other communities around the country need? Or will these promises just turn into another pipe dream on the horizon for people like Elise Klaasse? Abra Barbia, SABC News, Matsikama.
Sure. Always seems that it's the same issues coming up all the time. I mean, Matsikama, you heard it, it's a town made up, or it's a municipality made up of 18 towns situated in the Northern Cape, or close to the Northern Cape border over there.
And as I saw, Leanne, in that insert, South Africans voicing their anger, their frustration at the current leadership. And I think it's a good thing that they're actually talking about these issues and not resorting to violence and the destruction of public property.
Yeah, it's most important, it really is. But it always seems to be, like we say, those same things that come up. It's the lack of employment, it's the housing issues that are a big thing. Maybe one of the things that we didn't look at too closely as well is the kind of biggest employees in that particular area. It's the manufacturing, it's agriculture, it's forestry, it's fishery, and it's transport as well. You know what's really interesting that I find is that since 2006, Matsikama has never had an outright win by any one political party.
Interesting.
So this particular municipality has always been run through a coalition government. So let's see what happens during this particular election. You never know. It could be an outright winner or maybe another coalition. Who knows?
All right, we'll have more election news right after this break. Just stay with us.
Health Talk unpacks healthy tips to help you to practice healthy living lifestyles.
Now, generally, type 1 is found mostly in children and young adults, and with type 2 diabetes is found mainly in the older generation and also with an issue of obesity.
don't have second portions. And then I've brought this plate model to show that for both meals, your lunch, your dinner, half a plate should be vegetable.
Within sports, we see the spectrum itself. Most often we see minor head contact injuries, we call them.
Right.
But certainly in sports, the one that a lot of attention is paid to is concussion.
You see, you've got something, boom, but it's uncontrolled. Whereas in soccer, when the guy hits the ball, it's controlled. His neck muscles are controlling it. And that's why they say, for instance, in rugby, the training should be to improve your neck strength.
For more on health, join your host Dr. Selo Motaung every Saturday from 9 to 10 a.m.
He appealed for the disruptions to come to an end so the future of the children is not compromised.
The union said the latest offer by Eskom will condemn its members to poverty.
Samples from the 2012 London Olympic Games and 2014 Sochi Winter Games will also be retested.
Stay tuned to News Today at 3 p.m. from Monday to Friday on SABC News.
Good afternoon, you're with the news at 1.
Welcome to Lunchtime News Amplified.
Selection of political parties by means of a lucky draw has been a common practice for the past 22 years.
We take an in-depth look at top stories of the day and live crossings to our journalists on the scene.
First time in our nation's history that a woman will be a major party's nominee.
Business news, sports update, and weather report.
Hello and welcome to News Live. I'm Natasha Thorpe. Good to have you with us.
For all things news, tune in to Midday Report, weekdays at 12 noon, only on the SABC News channel.
All right, welcome back. It's 13 minutes past 6 here on this Monday night. It's lovely to have you with us, hopefully nice and warm wherever you are in South Africa. We told you tonight we're going to be talking about two of the different municipalities. The very first one we're looking at is first the city of Johannesburg and then Ekurhuleni. Both are in Gauteng. And let me start off by talking about the city of Johannesburg, and then we'll move on to Ekurhuleni. I'm going to quickly just tell you what happened in our last election. And the last municipal elections were held in 2011. Now, in those elections, the ANC picked up 59% of the vote, the DA 34.3% of the vote, and the IFP got 1% of the vote. All right, so that's what you need to know going into these elections. However, the political landscape has changed somewhat since 2011, and we've now got the EFF, who, of course, are going to be contesting these elections as well, so we don't have them, and they're also, as we do believe, going to be quite a strong contender. So that's the city of Johannesburg. But in the 2014 elections, this is also something you need to have a listen to. In the 2014 elections, that number from the ANC went down quite significantly. From the 59% I spoke about, it went down to 52%. That was in the 2014 elections. The DA also, from the 2011 elections, went down from 34% to 32%. And that's going to be something to watch because the EFF got 10% in 2014. We'll talk about Ekurhuleni in the middle of my interview because I'm now going to be crossing over to Ronesh. And Ronesh, as you know, is our political researcher. He, of course, is in our Durban studio. Ronesh Dwaraj, it's always good to have you on the program. Welcome to our election show.
Thanks, Leanne. Always a pleasure to be on the program.
All right, I'm going to break it down because I haven't actually spoken through our results in Ekurhuleni. So let's first start off with the city of Johannesburg. So we saw the picture. We got an understanding that the ANC has lost support in the city of Joburg, and we've seen the DA gaining along the way and the EFF gaining along the way. What does this picture look like? Because we do know the DA are hoping they want to win this outright. Is there a possibility of this happening?
Well, firstly, Leanne, just remember that the metros are very fertile ground for any political party, because the metros, if you look at the population, we're currently sitting at 10.4 million, or 41% of registered voters in those 8 metros. If you look at Gauteng's combined metros, Johannesburg, Ekurhuleni and Tshwane, which boasts around 5.3 million registered voters, that's almost 50% of the overall tally in the metros country-wise. I think Johannesburg is a little more secure for the ANC when you compare that to Tshwane, or for example the Eastern Cape's Nelson Mandela Bay Metro. But I think, well, you know, this is my theory. I still think that the DA's main aim, you know, in the 2016 local government elections is not to necessarily win the council outright and the highly contested metros, but actually to drop the ANC below the majority, the psychological majority rule, which is 50% plus 1, which would then open the door to more fluid politics, you know, in terms of coalition politics, which will inject accountability, which has always been the DA's mantra and their style of politics. But, you know, if you had to ask me, you know, what's the result prediction after August the 3rd, next week, Wednesday, I think the ANC will dip below 50%. The DA will make a very strong showing, but watch the EFF very, very closely, because the EFF will be kingmaker. It will, you know, for all intents and purposes, will obviously court, you know, whichever party it actually wants to go into a coalition in Johannesburg.
Yeah. Let's look at the kind of voters at the moment. Who is going to vote for the ANC? Who is going to vote for the DA? And who is going to vote for the EFF? And in the city of Johannesburg, still our focus of attention.
I love this question, Leanne. You know, according to what I think it's going to be a fight, you know, obviously amongst the 3 big players. It's going to be the ANC, it's going to be the DA and the EFF. This fight, the ANC will be fighting to retain the status quo because it is the incumbent party in Johannesburg. They will also fight for the middle classes, especially the black middle classes, but also they will fight for the poor voters, you know, those voters who are resident in Johannesburg's many townships. The DA is going to slug it out for the middle classes, obviously the black middle classes as well. But the EFF, I think the battle for the EFF will be in ANC territory, in those townships, the township vote. And remember, the middle class is a demographic that's very important for democracy, because this is a group that is educated, they're technologically savvy, they drive economic activity. This is a group that's more likely to go out onto the streets to protest and, you know, you know, in some countries they actually bring governments to their knees, like we've seen in places like Thailand and Brazil. The DA is a very strong urban party. It does better in local elections. So their strongholds are actually the urban centers like the metros. But the ANC still has control of the most powerful black elites, the black elite middle classes. But the issue with the ANC is that they are not actually winning the fight against winning or capturing the younger rising middle classes. And I suppose this is the reason why the DA in the 2014 elections, before the 2014 elections, they actually courted Agang SA's Dr. Mampela Rampela, because she offered the DA a constituency of the black elite middle class that the DA so desperately needed. And if you look at the ANC, this is why recently you know, we saw the ANC recruit 2,500 black professionals, you know, you know, to form a committee to look at this demographic, to fan out into Johannesburg and the other metros, to actually win over this demographic that is moving more towards the DA and to COPE and to EFF to a certain degree. We've had people like Tokyo Sexwale, Mavusa Msamang, Kgalema Matlante, Ahmed Katrada also, you know, coming into the picture. And lastly, I'd also like to say that, remember, the ANC president, Jacob Zuma, is not very popular in Gauteng, and he's also not very popular among the middle classes, which is a huge concern for the ANC.
Yeah, so it's going to be very interesting. I mean, whichever way you look at it, we can do as many predictions as we like, but it's still going to be the one to watch. Kuruleni, looks like that's not going to be as interesting. I mean, if I can give the 2011 results that I have in front of me here, 62% went to the ANC, the DA got 30%, and the IFP got 1%. I keep bringing the 2014 results into it because that's where the EFF were involved. And in 2014, the ANC dropped down to 55% of the vote. We saw the DA dropping to 29% and the EFF taking 10% of the vote. So wherever you go, the EFF they're that interesting party. They're the ones that are coming in and making things a little bit more complicated. But set a scene for us in Ekurhuleni. I mean, this is still an ANC stronghold, no doubt.
And I think post-August the 3rd, Ekurhuleni will still be very safely in ANC hands. Of course, the DA will come up with a very strong showing. The DA will increase their vote percentage in Ekurhuleni. Obviously, the DA has Ghalib Kachalia, who is obviously the son of Amina and Yusuf Kachalia. So again, struggle credentials coming to the picture. But I think the ANC's biggest worry in Ekurhuleni, especially like Johannesburg, is going to be the township situated within Ekurhuleni, because that's where the poorer voters are kind of buying into the EFF's populist rhetoric to a certain extent. So I think it will be a tussle between the ANC and the EFF more than the ANC and the DA, like in places like Nelson Mandela Bay Metro or Tshwane or even Johannesburg for that matter.
All right, let's leave it there. Thank you, as usual, for talking to us here on the programme. Runesh Dwaj is, of course, our political analyst, and he's based at the SABC and giving us a lot of explaining ahead of these elections, because we need it.
Yeah, definitely.
We need it, simply.
Definitely.
We need to get to the bottom of all of this.
One election to watch out for. And as you know, the ANC is definitely losing support, especially from the black elite and the black middle class. And, speaking of the black elite and the middle class, you know that, Leanne, that the city of Joburg has, of course, a population of 4.4 million, of which 3/4 are black, and just more than 12% are white, and 5.6 coloured, and almost 5% are Indian or Asian.
Yeah. So that puts it all into perspective.
Absolutely.
When it comes to the voter. But you can predict as much as you want. It's the results that count at the end of next week. All right, now, let's take a break. After this, we're going to take a look at some of the smaller parties that are going to be contesting these upcoming elections. Please do stay with us.
We celebrate those who take strides doing good and changing the world.
I really think that education has to be revisited, and it's an integral part of teaching young people skills of the future.
There's always light at the end of the tunnel.
I think that the treatment should be made available, actually, because it's costly. Growth hormones are very, very costly.
Where there is a challenge, we bring hope.
I'm alive. And the brain tumor is gone.
Join your host Buleng Malabati every Friday at 17:30 for more uplifting stories.
Welcome back. This is our election show on SABC2, and of course this is the channel 404. Now for a regular slot where all the smaller parties get some airtime, and the All Unemployment Labour Alliance, also called AULA, will be contesting in Maluti a Pofung against the Dikwankwetla party in the Eastern Free State. Let's now watch its candidate, Silo Mosinyane.
AULA, before you can go inside the municipalities, number one, AULA is supposed to put the law where that all the municipalities must be clear on the municipality first, and secondly, AULA is supposed to create the jobs for the people. And then how AULA is going to create the people? AULA is going to put all the FDC and all those people who says helping the unemployment people to come in together, because we don't want the people to struggle. If the people say you want the job, maybe the people are thinking to make some project. You must know that this office for try to make the project, this one is for giving the money, that one is the business plan. We want to put all those companies together. And the people, if you want their assistant, if you go out, you must get that assistant before you can go anywhere. Because the people who have the experience, the people is already going to the lot of workshops, but the people are not getting the job.
Now, the Dikonkwetla was formed in 1974 and was once the governing party of the former Kwekwa homeland.
Yeah, and it's one of its candidates is Moketsi Lebesa. Let's take a look.
We promised the voters to bring clean and efficient local government administration. We will restore the dignity of the people of Maluti Apufu by releasing well-located land for public housing, where people will have a choice of tenure, a choice of accommodation that suits their individual needs. We will make sure that as the Dikonkwetla Party of South Africa, we grow the economy of the townships by the system we call watt-based economy. We will make sure that we give people reliable electricity. People will have alternative ways of buying electricity. We will also make sure that we restore the dignity of people of Kwakwa by providing them with reliable water. As I'm speaking right now, people do not have water here. The Dikonkwetla Party of South Africa will make sure that we bring the restoration of supply of water to our people within 10 days.
All right, so we've got time for one more now. In the King Sabata Delandiebo municipality in the Eastern Cape, one of the smaller parties is the South African Security Organization.
Lapha kule ndawo ye-security apho sifuna ukongeza inani lama-security ezidolophini.
Starting with security, we want to increase guards and reduce hours. In schools, ensure safety of our children, create projects so that crime drops in rural areas. Crime increases because people are idle. Plow fields in Meleni, we want them planted.
All right, there you go. So we've given you 3 smaller parties that will be contesting when it comes to the elections next week. I mean, I can't believe that it's actually coming up next week.
Actually, elections. 9 days, eh?
Yeah,
9 days to be exact.
Yeah. Just time's flying, and it's right there. I hope you've made plans to get home, get to wherever you are from, and remember, you have to vote where you're registered. You can't just vote anywhere. This is that particular election that you have to vote where you are registered to vote, where your municipality is, and that's the place that you have to go home and you have to vote in. So please make sure.
I have to make this plea. We are making an earnest plea to all the loan sharks and to all the Shylocks and Bomashonisa to please release the ID documents of your clients so they have to exercise their right to vote.
Oh my gosh, really? Wow, okay. You've opened up a can of worms I never even thought of. I'm going to keep
put my head on the block on that. Please release those ID documents, guys. We have to vote.
But he's begging you, please release them. You've gone into another world, a completely different world. But what I do know is that the departments are going to be open on that day, all day until voting stations are closed, the Department of Home Affairs, so you can pick up your ID. You better get that ID, otherwise you can't vote.
Absolutely.
That's it. We've got to go. When the credits are rolling, it means we're in trouble. We've got to say goodbye.
Oh, no, we're done?
Yeah, we're done. Simply well, let's say goodbye. See you tomorrow
night. But then it's a date tomorrow, 6 o'clock on SABC 2 and SABC Channel 404, and with a repeat at 12 midnight on both platforms. Have a great one. Bye-bye.
Cheers, bye-bye.
Usisiwe Jamsana, SABC News, Alice.
Mzondi Lembeche, SABC News, Doha, Qatar.
Kunati Bingwase, SABC News, Alice.
Diabo Seto, SABC News, Jenny.